Hello, everyone, and welcome to the APA 7th edition presentation. My name is Tariana Smith, but you can call me Miss Smith, and I am your reference librarian. As the reference librarian, it is my responsibility to assist you with anything pertaining to your research, navigating online databases, citation styles, plagiarism, and more. I am a resource here for you to use and hope to work with each of you one day. At the end of the presentation, I will provide you with my direct contact information, including email and extension. If you have any questions, please write them down for the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. We have quite a bit to cover. I hope you find this presentation helpful. With that being stated, let's get started. What will we uncover today? Throughout this presentation, I will cover how to format your APA 7th edition paper, direct quoting. We will also go over paraphrasing, narrative citations, and parenthetical citations. I will also give you some basic need-to-know rules when it comes to writing in APA, how to cite authors throughout your paper, and provide you with a couple of reference examples. I will give you the primary differences between the APA 7th edition and the previous edition, the APA 6th edition. Lastly, I will also provide you with my contact information. When I teach information on citation styles, I always like to provide the why for students. I am sure you all have asked the question, why is this stuff so important? I always ask students to consider their goals in life. Everyone sitting here today has a goal to graduate. After you graduate, you will move on to make positive, effective change in your field and in this world. An important aspect of graduating is passing your classes. Plagiarism is not tolerated within academia and in professional environments. Suno's Honor Code can provide you with more insight into the consequences of what could occur if you plagiarize. An important aspect of not plagiarizing is learning how to properly use the citation style for your research in writing for your academic field and or discipline. For your field, this would be APA. It is important to credit original works of authorships, interpretations, thoughts, ideas, etc., that are not your own. Equipping yourself with the tools necessary to not plagiarize is going to ultimately help you. This presentation will help you learn how to properly give credit and cite content throughout your paper so that you do not make this mistake. This is the APA 7th edition manual. I strongly encourage, if you are able to, for you to purchase this manual. It is considered a lifeline. There will be many things that I do not cover with you in this presentation that can be found in this manual. However, I will provide you with a solid foundation to move forward with the basic APA principles. Please do not hesitate to contact me for helpful tools and handouts for you to use as well. One of the primary changes for the APA 7th edition is that there are now two papers. There is a student paper and a professional paper. Throughout this presentation, I will show you both. Please note that the student paper does not require a running head, author's note, or an abstract. However, please make sure that you are adhering to your instructor's guidelines and rules for the assignment when it comes to their expectations for your papers. Although you are students, if your professor requires you to have an abstract, write the abstract. If your professor requires you to have a running head, then create a running head. Student papers are considered flexible and broad within the APA style, and instructors are encouraged to adapt certain criteria to fit their needs. The APA 7th edition includes more font styles for you to use for your paper, including but not limited to Times New Roman 12-point font, Arial 11-point font, Lucida 10-point font, Georgia 11-point font, and more. Usually your instructor will let you know which font style to use for your paper. Standard APA papers have 1-inch margins, are double-spaced, include page numbers in the upper right-hand corner of each page, and include proper headings within the text to organize your paper. As stated previously, student papers do not require running heads. However, please adhere to the guidelines and requirements requested by your instructor for the assignment. For the professional paper, the title page includes the running head located in the upper left-hand corner of the page. Another change from the APA 6th edition is that the term running head is no longer required on the first page. Only an abbreviated version of the title is required and appears throughout your paper. Page numbers are located in the upper right-hand corner of the page. The title should be centered towards the top half of the page and bolded. Following the title is the author's name, institutional affiliation, and then the author's note. Please note that one should double space twice in between the title and the author's name. Here is an example of the title page for an APA professional paper. Please make note of the components that were mentioned on the previous slide. As you can see, flush in the upper left-hand corner, we have the running head. Note that the term running head is no longer on there. Also note that you have the page number located in the upper right-hand corner. Then, all located towards the top half centered of the paper, we have the title of the paper, then we have the authors, then we have the affiliation, and underneath there we have the author's note. The abstract page should include the running head and page number in the appropriate areas. The word abstract should appear centered at the top of the paper and bolded. You do not indent when you type the abstract. The abstract should not exceed 200 to 250 words in length and should be left aligned. You also must include the keywords for your text. Here is an example of an abstract. Please make note of the components that were mentioned on the previous slide. So as you can see, and as I mentioned before, abstracts are only required for professional papers. However, if it is required by your instructor for your student paper, this is how it would be set up. Note that the word abstract is centered and bolded at the very top of the page, and everything is double spaced. It is left aligned, and as I mentioned previously, in an abstract, you do not indent. Note that the abstract is meant to be brief and concise. It should be no more than 200 to 250 words in length. And also note that the keywords are located right underneath the abstract. For a student paper, the page number should appear in the upper right-hand corner of the page. The title should be bold and centered. Underneath the title should be your name. Underneath your name should be the department name and institutional affiliation. Following that information comes the course name and course number. Underneath that is the instructor's name, and then the date the assignment is due. Please note that you should double space twice between the title of the paper and your name. Here is an example of a student paper title page. Please make note of the page number located in the upper right-hand corner. Then we have located towards the top half centered of the paper title, which is bolded and centered. After double spacing a couple of times, then we have the student's name or the author's name. Underneath there, we have the affiliation. This includes the department along with the institutional affiliation. Underneath there, we would have the course name, also the course number. Underneath that, we would have the instructor's name. And underneath there, we would have the due date for the assignment. Please note that you do spell out the month completely when you are typing out your due date. Unless specified otherwise by your instructor, this is the title page for a student APA paper. However, as I mentioned before, it is up to the discretion of your instructor and for you to adhere to any guidelines or requirements that they may have for your APA style paper. When beginning the body of your student paper, the title of the paper must serve as a heading. Type the title of your paper centered and bolded. Be sure to indent before each new paragraph. The paper must be left aligned. Also, be sure to use proper headings within your paper to help organize and provide structure throughout your paper. Your page number should be in the upper right-hand corner of the paper and running head, if only it is required by your instructor, in the upper left-hand corner. The reference page will include the page number in the appropriate area in the upper right-hand corner. The word references should be centered and bolded at the top of the page. The references should be in alphabetical order, and a hanging indent must be used for references that are 2 lines or more. Here's an example of a reference page. Please make note of the components that were mentioned in the previous slide. We have the page number located in the upper right-hand corner. Then, centered and bolded, we have the word references. And underneath there, we have the references of all of the sources that were used within the paper. Notice that they are in alphabetical order and that the references that that are 2 lines or more have a hanging indent in between them. Now I will explain the difference between direct quotes and paraphrasing. When information is taken verbatim from a source, it is considered a direct quote. When one rewords, rephrases, and puts information in one's own words, it is considered paraphrasing. I would like to stress that it is preferred in APA that you paraphrase information from sources rather than using direct quotes. However, you can use them. Please be mindful when directly quoting sources throughout your paper and paraphrasing. The bulk of your paper should not be comprised of other sources. Papers can still be considered plagiarized if you overuse sources throughout your paper and they make up most of your paper. Whenever you directly quote or paraphrase information, you must cite the source accordingly. Within your paper, this is either done using a narrative citation Narrative and parenthetical citations can be used interchangeably throughout your paper. A narrative citation is when the author's name is mentioned within the text, before the quote, or before the information being paraphrased. When the author's name is mentioned within the text, it is immediately followed in parentheses by the year of publication for the source. Whatever information you are quoting from the text must appear in quotations, followed by a page number where the quote was taken from. Please see the example under narrative citation for specifics. In a parenthetical citation, the author's name is not mentioned within the text, before the quote or the information paraphrased. When using this citation method, one must still give credit to the author accordingly. The author's name, year of publication, and page number would then appear at the end of the quote in parentheses. Please remember that whenever you directly quote, you must always include the author's name, year of publication, and page number. That, however, is not the case when paraphrasing. When paraphrasing, citing the author's name and year of publication usually suffices. Also, note that your punctuation always goes outside of the parentheses throughout your paper. Please see the example under parenthetical citation for more specifics. If you are ever using a source that does not provide page numbers or pagination, there are methods that must be used to properly cite the source. Paragraph numbers can be used using the abbreviation PARA, P-A-R-A, followed by a period. Providing a heading or section name also works, or you can provide a heading or section name along with a paragraph number. Either way, even if page numbers are not provided within your source, you still must indicate where that quote came from using one of the following methods. Usually, when you are reading a source, that source has content from other sources. The source that you are reading is considered the secondary source. The information they are quoting or paraphrasing within the source is the primary source. If this occurs and you want to cite the information of the original author being cited in the secondary source, it is recommended that you locate or try to access the primary source or the original document first. After locating the original document, you can move forward with citing the source properly. However, if you are unable to locate the primary source in order to cite the information properly, you must first give credit to the original author, then to the secondary source author. Please refer to the following example for specifics. There are certain things within APA that can be changed that do not require an explanation. Capitalization, when using direct quotes, is one of them. You can change the beginning of a quote from an uppercase to a lowercase letter if it fits the structure of your sentence better. You can also change the punctuation as well to help flow with the structure of your sentence. Here are some things that do require indicators when trying to change within an APA paper. If there is something within a quote that you are trying to omit because you do not need that part of the quote or simply do not want to use it, an ellipsis must be used to indicate to the reader that you omitted information from the quote. If you want to insert information into a quote to provide clarity on it, brackets must be used to indicate that the information was not a part of the original quote. If you want to place emphasis on something within the quote, the word or phrase must be italicized, and the word added in brackets must follow. Now we are getting into how to cite sources depending on the number of authors the source has. If the source has one author, cite using the author's last name and the year of publication. Remember, if you are directly quoting, a page number is required as well. For sources that have two authors, credit must be given to both authors. If you are using a narrative citation, use the word and in between both surnames of the authors. If you are using a parenthetical citation, use the ampersand symbol in between both surnames. Remember to include pagination if you directly quote from the source. This is another change from the 6th edition of APA. Now, when you get to sources that have three or more authors, you must incorporate the term et al. Followed by a period after the first surname. Use the first author's surname that is listed, followed by et al. For sources that have three or please see the examples for specific. Sometimes you may come across a source that has a group entity as an author. When that occurs, usually the full group name is spelled out in the first or initial citation. If the group name is long, in subsequent citations, an abbreviation can be used if it is easily recognizable. A group author without an abbreviation should always be spelled out. Please refer to the example for specifics. Here are a couple of reference examples. I chose these two examples in particular because they are probably the primary ones that you are going to be using for your research, especially if you are using the online databases to find scholarly articles and things of that nature. So the first source is a journal article. Note that first you have the author's name, which with the authors, you start with the last name, then it's followed by a comma, and then it's followed by the initials of the authors for their first and middle name if they do have a middle name. After the author's name, then it has the year of publication in parentheses, followed by a period. Then after that, it has the title of the article. Note that in the title, you only capitalize the first letter of the first word. If the title of the journal article has a subtitle, then you capitalize the first word within that subtitle, but everything else should be lowercase. After the title of the article, it's followed by a period. Then it is followed by the name of the journal, italicized. In the name of the journal, you capitalize all major words in the journal title. After that, it's followed by a comma, then the volume of the journal article, which is also italicized. After the volume in parentheses, directly after is the issue number. The issue number is not italicized, so make sure you change that whenever you begin to type out your reference for a journal article. Followed by the issue number in parentheses and a comma. Then you would give the page numbers, followed by the DOI, which DOIs are now used with using URLs or created using URLs. If there is no DOI for that particular article, then after the page number, you would just put the period and that would suffice. The second one is the book reference. As mentioned before, the author's name are mentioned first with the surname followed by a comma and the initials, first and middle if there is a middle for the authors. After the author's name is followed by a period and then in parentheses the copyright year. and it is not italicized, in parentheses. After the parentheses is followed by a period, then the title of the book. You capitalize only the first letter of the first word. For a two-part title, you capitalize the first word of the second part. After that, you would include the addition in there in parentheses, followed by a period after the addition. Then you would have the publisher. Note that you do not put the place of publication, only the publisher's name, followed by a period, and then the DOI or URL for the book. Here are some of the notable changes in the APA 7th edition versus the 6th edition. 1. The running head is not required for student papers. 2. The term running head does not appear on the title page anymore. 3. The phrase et al. Should be used for works with 3 or more authors. 4. The phrase retrieved from is no longer necessary for websites. 5. Websites are italicized now. 6. The publisher is no longer needed in the reference entry. This is referring to books and chapters within books. 7. DOI should be listed as URLs. 8. Up to 20 authors for each source should be listed in the reference. Last, for ebooks, the format, platform, or device, for example, a Kindle, is no longer included in the reference, and the publisher is included. This concludes the presentation. I hope you all found it informative and helpful. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me if you need further assistance or a one-on-one instruction. I have provided the link for the library instruction form for you. I recommend using the Suno Library Linktree account as well. We have all our forms on there for you to access, whether you need to schedule an instruction, make an appointment to use our services, request a Grammarly invitation, access our webinars, and much more. I ask and encourage you to submit our brief survey as well on this presentation. Your feedback is invaluable and will be used to make necessary adjustments. I